Hello, everybody. I am here today with Loris from OctoberRainRocks. How are you doing, Loris?
I'm fine after all our technical issues.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a tech issue here before we started. And for everybody who's maybe watching on Loris's channel, we're gonna split this into two parts. So my name is Alvia. I go by pronouns he, him, and I'm from the channel Inspiring Alien Creations. And who are you, Loris?
I am Lars, and I don't have any specific pronouns. And I am 46 and from Scotland.
Cool. I'm from Finland. um, so yeah, we're both in Europe. We're both witches. We are both interested in all kinds of esoteric things, and spirituality, all kinds of things. So, do you have something to say about that for yourself?
Yeah, I have been. Well, I was kind of. I always knew as a kid I was a bit like different and kind of. When you're young, you don't really know what a certain thing is. You just kind of are who you are, and then just as time goes on, you start to learn. Oh, that means this, and this means that. So when I was young, I knew that I was connected very much to the ebbs and flow of the earth. I didn't know why at that time. And then as time elapsed and I got into older adulthood years, actually, that I became more of a hands-on practitioner, simply because none of my family that I'm aware of anyway, definitely not immediate family, um, have a background in the craft. Or I think, even though it wasn't, I was never told this, I still think my grandmother was sensitive. Whether she'd call herself a witch, I don't know. I was too young when she passed to find that out, but I didn't start practicing until I was, now you're asking, I think I was either in my late 30s or my early 40s, like when I kind of physically said to people, this is what I am and this is what I believe in, because, like I say, the family dynamic wasn't kind of set up for anybody kind of getting that aspect. And I've been practicing now since then and obviously up to now.
Yeah. So that there's some familiarity with that story for me
Mm-hmm.
personally, because I also don't know anybody in the family lines who would have practiced anything like this or who would have
Yeah.
had any interest in this, because like my whole family line is in Finland, and it's only like when you go into like very far into the ancestry where there's some Russian heritage, that's where my family kind of originated into Finland from.
Yeah.
But like that's about it. And but then like the difference is, because I'm a lot younger than you, I'm 26. So I started, I think I started witchcraft around 2015, 2016, around that time. So yeah, I'm a little bit more new to the craft, but I always had the connection to the spirit world in one way or another, or at least an interest.
Yeah.
And like the funny thing is, when I think about my childhood, is I always had the connection to something divine, and I was basically doing magic without knowing it.
Yeah, I think
It's
I was the
that's
same.
Yeah, that's exactly the thing. Like, you don't always know what magic is, but you kind of do it
Yeah.
anyway. And then the other funny coincidence is that, you
Yeah.
know, I I wanted to learn how to do magic tricks when I was a kid, and I did those. Like, I did that, that little magic show thing. I played around with that when I was a kid. It was so much fun. But I just find it so funny, like remembering it now in my 20s. Like, I did that as a kid. Like, what the heck?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same with me because, like, this is what I think, like, was the conduit for me, really, of kind of thinking, wait a minute, there's something more to this, but I still didn't know what it was because I was only young. My gran and my mom's side passed when I was 8, and I use that like as I kind of, it's almost like when I don't know if this is the right terminology, but I always say to people that that was almost like the conduit, like the awakening, so to speak, because when she passed, she kind of let herself know, and this was before I knew about the spiritual world at all, didn't understand anything. And I remember that when she passed, I was sitting in the spare room at the time with a tin of photographs. I was looking at photographs and getting a bit upset about it because I was really close to her. I was actually closer to my gran than any other member of the family. And obviously I was still young at the time, so I didn't understand a lot of things regards, the other side, all that kind of thing. And basically, when she passed, she let herself be known, I'm here, and she's been with me through all sorts of things in my life, still is. Which I thought was interesting because I, at the time, didn't understand any of that. I had never experienced mortality. That had never happened. That was the first loss, and that understanding or getting to know that aspect of it. So when that happened, and that happened right on the back of that, I thought, wait a minute, what is going on here? That from there on in, I started seeing and hearing, but predominantly hearing, feeling, smelling with connections. So clairsentient, clairaudio, or clairaudient, however you want to pronounce it. Those things were very prominent. In regards physically seeing, not so much. There was only specific times that happened, but when those things did happen, I think it all stemmed from my gran, like that kind of when she passed, and that's what the kind of little antenna went up, and that's when I thought, wait a minute, what does all this mean? I didn't understand it then, but that's
Yeah.
when the little antenna went up, I think.
Yeah. It's usually like that, isn't it? Like you don't really
Yeah.
understand everything at first.
Yeah.
And especially like if you have that kind of a big awakening moment, it can, sometimes be a little bit like scary also.
It was weird. It was almost like I got it, but I didn't get it. Like, because I was young then, and I was trying to process like sort of the mundane aspect of it, like the sort of the physicality of her passing. But then at the same time, I knew something else was going on. I just didn't know what exactly that was. And I was trying to process that. And it took me a long time before it really kind of made some kind of a sense. I got aspects of it when I was young, but I didn't understand what I know now. Like, let's just say that when you're young, it's like I've said to people in the past, like if you have a pull towards something, like you go out in nature and you feel drawn to the elements, but you don't know why, you just feel connected. That's how I felt when I was young. And I was classed as a bit of as a black sheep of the family because of that. People were like, that Laura, she's weird, she's like into woo-woo and weird stuff. And like other family members were not like that. So I was kind of like the strange one, the black sheep, the odd one that dressed weird and had a bit of a weird personality. That was me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what else is new? Nothing's changed there. So the only difference being was I didn't understand a lot of it that I do now because obviously I'm like in my kind of crone years now, I would say, and so it's actually weird when I say to people, it's almost like it's taken me to get to my crone years to fully understand a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's weird and it isn't weird, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, like that's a very interesting story. And the whole black sheep thing, being a little bit of a weird kid, I definitely I can relate to that a little bit. Because yeah, I think we talked about this maybe because like I mean I've talked about this with some other people at least, where I kind of felt like an alien a lot of the times when I was a kid. So and like especially when it comes to family, I just felt very like weird, like I
Mm,
almost didn't belong there.
yep.
And it's like it's getting even weirder because like especially like when you come out, whatever you kind of come out as, it's like always a little bit like, okay, so yeah, this is who I am. And I'm not sure if I'm gonna feel safe around certain people, but I'm just gonna come out anyway.
Mm. I mean, for me, like, I grew up in a small fishing village. I live just outside of a bigger town now, and I live in a different part of Scotland than I did growing up. And it's weird because I have always felt like I was lifted up and plonked somewhere that I didn't resonate with. Like, I don't mean physicality of location. I mean, it was like somebody take me from a different time, a different realm, and went, plonk, there you go, deal with that. And I'm like, what the heck? That's how I felt. Even when I was young, although I didn't understand it like that then, I always used to think, why do I have this kind of like, why do I see things so differently and people think that that's weird, you know? And why do I have this, you know, why do I kind of, when I go out for a walk when I was young, I used to take this notepad with me and I would sit on a hay bale in a field and I would watch like nature and I'd write little stories about, like, I'd give all the bugs and the birds weird names and they got up to no good and they got up to little adventures and stuff. And like people were like, what the heck, you know, why don't you just go out and play like a normal kid? And I'm like, well, you know, that was their normal, not my normal. It took a long time for me to realise that just because it didn't resonate that way with other people didn't mean that how I felt or the way I was kind of seeing the world was wrong. It was just that I had a different perception of the world, a different perception of, like, my sister and I lived in the same village. Her perception of it and mine were like that. You know, she was very much keeping up with the Joneses, even at a young age. You know, she was like into the in things, into the in sort of crowds, and I was a completely opposite of that, totally opposite. And like, I'd be happy to go out and take a walk along the beach and, you know, sit on a rock, and like my mind would go way off some place else, and she'd be like, "That's boring," you know. And I'm like, well, no, not to me it isn't. But so she was away over here, I was away over here, even though we grew up in exactly the same location. And I always felt that was like interesting because obviously she was way over this way of thinking, I was way over this way of thinking. And it's taken to adult years actually where I think my sister, my biological sister, I think she kind of gets all that aspect of it now. When we were young, I think she was like, my sister's weird. She's put scarves over lamps in her room and she's burned this stuff and it smells like mothballs. And I'm like, what smells like mothballs? And she's like, that stuff you burn, meaning incense. So, you know what I mean? She was way over here, I was way over there. But now, like, we're like, she's a couple of years younger than me. She says, like, I kind of get it now a bit. Like, when I was younger, I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, I can also, like, it's so funny because I can also kind of relate to that as well. I feel like that was me and my brother back in the day, and I mean, he's still a little bit like that. He's still a little bit like, oh yeah, Alvia is a little bit weird, you know. So it's like, yeah, I vibe with that, and I kind of had a similar experience with, like, you know, when I moved out of this city that now I live back in, I kind of had a similar thing where I kind of just realized, like, okay, I'm not weird, and I'm a creative. That's the true nature of my being, and I should embrace that and really just keep writing those songs and painting those pictures and do me. And the more interesting thing is I also started YouTube when I was living on my own, when I was, I'm trying to think what age I was, 18? Yes. I was 18 when I started YouTube 8 years ago. So, so yeah, it's been quite a while. And that was definitely, you know, a part of just learning how to express myself even more. So,
Yeah.
so,
I mean, I was like that too a wee bit. It was like I think, I mean, she still refers to me in some respects like, you know, eccentric and, you know, like off the cuff, and, you know, like there's still that, you know, like she thinks I'm the kind of quirky, strange one, you know, still, but she kind of resonates more with, like, you know, well, I just am different to her in that respect. But when she was young, it was almost like, I don't get it, why? Like, she'd say to me things like, why do you always want to go in charity shops and buy old people's clothes? And it's not old people's clothes, it was just secondhand stuff. I didn't see the point. Like, if we ever got money for a gift, right? My sister, once she got 70 UK pounds, you know, it would be different family members giving her money, and she spent that on one piece of clothing. Now, I was young at the time, and I was horrified. I thought, what the heck? One piece of clothing. I would want like a full wardrobe for that. And she was like, yeah, but it's not in fashion and it's not the whatever thing. So, but, and I would go to charity shops and secondhand shops and, you know, little quirky stores, and I'd like get a ton of stuff, you know, like really cool. Like, I mean, I got a really cool, it was a smoker's jacket. I think it was a guy's smoking jacket, really cool, sort of really cool fabric, really kind of gothy sort of style, and I got it for 10 pence. And I
Yeah,
remember coming home
what?
to my mum and dad and going, oh, look what I found. And they were like, yeah, okay then. And I was completely delighted that I got this jacket for 10 pence. And they were like, okay then.
Yeah, I mean, this flannel, it wasn't that cheap. It wasn't 10 pence, but it was like 12 euros maybe. And this one is also like a vintage secondhand flannel. And I freaking love this flannel. Like, I've been wearing this for many weeks now in a row. I'm just like, I'm just gonna wear this. I can like live the rest of my this flannel
I
because
don't
I
think you could
love
get that kind of thing now for 10 pence, but I mean, like,
it.
it was crazy prices. Like, and because I
Yeah.
lived, well, the village I lived in across the town where the charity shops were, which there wasn't many of, like when you find something like that, it was like amazing, you know. And even back then, it
Yeah.
was like, I was like, oh my gosh, 10 pence, that's so cool. And everyone else
Yeah.
was not quite as happy about it as me. They were like, what's the big deal, you know? Like, nowadays you wouldn't probably get something like that for 10 pence. You never know, you might somewhere, but I mean, I still have that. I don't fit it anymore, like, but that's not the point. I still have it.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I can I understand that because like this is also kind of a small city.
Mm,
Like, it's not a village or anything like that, but it's like it's kind of a small city, but of course now that, you know, it's been modernized a lot through the last years. I don't know, I'd say in the last 6 years,
mm-hmm.
6 or 8 years maybe, since it's been you know, it's been progressing a little bit. Now there's more, you know, of these secondhand stores and, you know, loads more stores anyway.
Mm.
uh, so it's been way easier to find things over here, and I don't have to go to like Helsinki to buy a new flannel.
Yeah. I mean, even when I moved where I am now, like I still have that sort of came from a small area mentality, and it like it resonated from me. People are like, number one, I spoke differently to people who were like, "Oh, you're not from around here." I'm like, "Well, yeah," and then it was like it was like a culture shock because I mean, the town that I live just outside of now is quite big, but when I first moved here, which was when Ali was about 5.5 months old, it was still big, but not as big as it is now. And I remember thinking, "Whoa, this place is freaking massive." And it was just a normal. But I came from a fishing village, so like anything was massive, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is just it's so difficult to kind of adjust to." I mean, eventually did, but it was just so weird. It was like living in a fishing village environment, and then like obviously I moved to Aberdeen, which is where my son was born when I was, now you're asking me, 22 I think, and then no, 21, sorry. Then I had Ali when I was 23, and then
Okay.
moved down here. So like I'd had a couple of years in a slightly bigger area, but still it was almost like it was night and day. It was like up the northeast coast is completely different from central Scotland, you know. So it was like, oh, this is weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, I find that, you know, my experience of like a big world was just completely different. Like, it didn't even feel big. You know, I don't know. I've just always been a city loving person. I just always loved cities. So it hasn't really been that weird for me.
Yeah.
Whereas all of my peers over here growing up were just like, oh, but Helsinki is so big. Why do you want to go there? It's so big. It's so busy. There's so many people. Oh my God. And I'm just like chilling, you know? And
Yeah.
yeah, and then I also had the revelation like when I traveled abroad the first time by myself, when I went to London, I chose a very big city to travel to for my first solo trip, and I was in other places before that, but that was like with family usually. So so that was like the first experience traveling alone. And again, I was so comfortable, like it wasn't weird at all. And then I went to New York as well
Oh my
last year.
gosh.
Yeah. so
Oh my gosh.
so it's like I go to these big cities and I just chilling, you know.
I think for big cities, for me, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've been to quite a few, and I mean, Edinburgh is massive, and that's like about 20 minutes in the train from where I am. And don't get me wrong, I like to go to Edinburgh sometimes, but I like a lot of people go there for like the main things, like, you know, the big shop, you know, the fancy shops and stuff. I like the old world Edinburgh. Like I like go there, and I seek out weird and wonderful obscure graveyards and old buildings and stuff like that. And like when I first came to this area, I didn't know a lot of the different areas other than the obvious spots. And I started going and kind of interacting with different areas. And then, like, anytime I went through to Edinburgh, like, I like to go to the old town, or like the old parts, where all the old stuff was. And I felt that Princess Street, which is where a lot of people like to go for, like, sort of the fancy shopping and that, it just does not resonate with me at all. If I'm walking down Princess Street, I'm looking at like all the old architecture and stuff, and like, oh, look at that old church, you wonder how old that is, where other people are like, oh, cool, look in that shop, and I'm like away over here going, oh, look at that cool building or whatever.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate cities, but I think maybe in a slightly different way to maybe some people that I know do. That makes sense?
Yeah, I can also like I get what you're talking about, and I feel like that's something that, you know, we might have in common in a way, because we both have Scorpio in our charts, so we're more about,
Yeah,
you know, the depth and, you know, kind of like freaky, weird things,
yeah,
rather than, you know, like status and luxury and like, you know, the shiny of those cities necessarily isn't the
yeah,
thing. But I find for me also like art scenes and, you know, and there's something about, you know, just the experience of like being alone in a big city, like traveling there, and then, you know, like this is like such a weird thing to like explain like how much I enjoy, for example, you know, uh going from a hostel to have my morning coffee in a cafe and just enjoy
mhm,
myself. I don't know, like those type of small things, they feel so different when you're traveling alone. But like when it comes to the cities, I do feel that, you know, just how everything comes together. So it is so beautiful to see also the old. It's also very beautiful to see the old cities, but also how they kind of blend and interact with the new. I find that to
mhm,
be so cool. I especially like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, that makes sense, because like in Edinburgh, for example, you've got like all the old ancient buildings, some from way back, and then you've got like the modern stuff popping up in between. And sometimes you can see like how that really blends together, and other times I think people are getting better at merging the older with the more modern or the more urban. Now, like when you go to Edinburgh and you see maybe something new popping up in a more older part of Edinburgh, it doesn't stand out like a sore thumb. Whereas there's been some parts in the past when you're like, who the heck put that beside that? It looks awful, you know.
Yeah.
But that's probably just my I well, you probably feel this about yourself with your placements, but like when I see something really old like that, and then and somebody stuck something like that beside it, it's like, why did you do that? You've ruined it.
I know what you mean. Like, it's so weird.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, like the town I live in now, I live in the outskirts of the town. I don't live in the central town. And this is the weird thing I found, particularly over the last maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe 4 years. Um, I still feel to this day that something, I don't know if it's my placements, I don't know if it's, a previous life, I don't know what it is, but I'm really drawn to a particular place I've never been to before, um, to the point where even though I've never been, I feel like I want to pack my bags and move there. It's weird. People are like, how do you feel that? You've never
Mm,
been to the place, you're strange. And I'm like, I know, but that's just how it is.
yeah, I've been
And
having those urges too
it's
so
weird,
many
like
times.
never been there before, never physically in like the mundane life physically been.
Yeah,
I've dreamt about it. I've had experiences where I've had visions and stuff like that. I've never physically been to the place though. But still something makes me feel like that I could pack my stuff up tomorrow and just move there and go, right, that's me now.
yeah, like I've had that thing happen with like wanting to go to Greece for a few years now, a couple of years at least. And the
Mm.
only time my body has been in Greece was when my mom was pregnant with me and they went to Crete. So that's when I was in Greece. And
Been there and spin it.
the thing about London was that I was like maybe 3 years old when we went there with my parents. That's back in the
Mm-hmm.
day when my aunt still lived in London. But
Mm.
you know, that's I the thing with when I traveled there the first time was I just felt like I was home. It was so bizarre. I was just like, what the heck? Why do I feel so comfortable here? So yeah, I feel like maybe like back in the day when I was a little kid, I picked up something from there. And then of course, because my aunt always talked about like living there, because she was living there for over a decade.
Mm.
So she was talking about it a lot. And so yeah, of course I kind of picked up that maybe it's a cool place to go to.
Mm.
And then when I finally went, it was just like I'm just home.
It's weird. I mean, like I lived in a Ruislip, which is an area of England, Middlesex way, when I was, I don't even know how old I was, 16 or 16, I think. Yeah, I think it was about 16, something like that. I can't remember. And what possessed me to move down there is a whole another thing because when I think back now, I thought, what possessed me? I don't even like big busy places. And I worked in Harrow in a residential home, and I remember having to commute from Ruislip to Harrow for work because I worked, like I say, in a residential home. And I remember a few times on the bus thinking, what the heck am I doing here? It was kind of
Yeah,
like split. Like I was curious and interested, but at the same time thought this, like it doesn't. It wasn't gelling with me. If you well, I mean, I stayed there for a while. I can't remember how long I was there for. Maybe 8 months or something. I don't even know really, to be honest with you. I can't remember, but I just know when I think back now, I thought, what on earth? But it was part of, obviously, I was meant to do it. It was
yeah.
meant to happen. But I remember afterwards thinking, what the heck?
Mhm.
Why did I do that?
Yeah, I've had so many things like that too, where I kind of just think like, what the heck did I do and why did I do it?
Yeah, I mean, because like I don't, like, I'm not a big city person. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't mind visiting cities for
Yeah,
experiencing certain things. And when I've gone to cities or big towns in the past, most of it's been old world related. So it's like I've gone
interesting.
to a city to see ancient things or old things. Trust me.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like when I went to York, and York's like an old place,
yeah,
Um, and I had a couple of really interesting spiritual experiences in York that freaked people out. Um, and like I just wanted to see all the old stuff. I wasn't really interested in, shops and stuff.
yeah.
I wanted to see all the like the old graveyards, the old churches, the places that, like, even places that I didn't really know were there, and I kind of stumbled upon them.
Yeah.
I was there, and then like I say, even when I lived up the northeast coast, I think the closest that I got to anything to do with city life was if I'd go through on the train to like Dundee before I moved to Aberdeen, and like went like there for the day or something, or like for a night out or something like that, and then like it always resonated and always ended up back in the village I grew up in until I was 23 or 24, I think I was, something like that, and then moved down here. And as I say, that was a culture shock,
Yeah.
and not because of anything other than what I was kind of used to, the northeast coast life, not necessarily specifically the individual places, because I had been in Aberdeen by that point for 2 years or something, 3 years maybe. So Aberdeen was a big place, but I lived in an area called Bridge of Dawn, which is on the outskirts. Again, everything was on the outskirts. If I go somewhere where it's a city, it's never central. It's always on the outskirts. So I lived on the outskirts. I had to travel into the city to work, but I lived on the outskirts. And then when we moved to here, it was like not central. I'm further out of the town here than I was even when I first moved down here. I lived on sort of the outskirts of the town, but here I'm even further on the outskirts of the town. I'm actually, the road that takes you from where I am now, that takes you, like, if you turn right from my house now, if you follow that road, that takes you out of the town. So it's always been right on the edge, never right central in the middle.
Yeah.
That's just how I've always been, I think, when I look
Yeah.
back.
What do you feel about like the past life stuff? Do you have
It's,
anything to share about that?
well, the whole thing about them, the place I resonate with is called the Isle of Tyree, the place
Okay.
I've been to before. And I started having dreams about this place, and I didn't know where it was. I didn't even know if it was a real place. I didn't know if it was just a dream and it was this made up place in my head in a dream. And then I was sitting one time, and something came on the TV about like two different places in Scotland, and I thought, oh my God, that's out my dream. It is a real place. I didn't know what it was called at that point. I just knew that's it from a dream, and I was like, okay, that's weird. And then I started having dreams where this woman, which I believe is a kayak, but the Scottish aspect of the kayak. Now, a lot of people know the kayak as the kayak or the kaliak. I think it depends what part of the UK or Scotland you come from, and that resonated with me. Now, when that first happened, I thought it was just coincidental. However, the vibe I have been getting from it was she was brought forward to make me dig further into my ancestors, my roots of my ancestors, even ones I didn't know about. So that I started digging around on that and started finding out that I did have family in the islands, but it wasn't the Isle of Tyree, it was the Shetland Isles. So like a lot of my family are connected with Scotland and Ireland. Although I do know that I've got Afro-Caribbean connections. I don't know anything about it though, on my dad's side somewhere. I really don't know. It would be interesting to find that out. But I still think, with that being said, like, I think that was no coincidence. I think with regards to past lives, that is part of that, because I think it made me kind of delve further deeper into past tense, like in the before sort of thing, and it's very much connected in with, like, a friend of mine and I were saying about, she was like, when this craziness is all over, where we need to go to the Isle of Tyree and see if you have the same experience, like see if that connection's like definitely there. And I says, well, I can tell you right now that if my situation was different, then I wouldn't think twice of it.
Yeah.
And the dream that I had was, one of the first dreams I had was I was standing on this embankment right on the edge of the water overlooking out to sea. And at first I wasn't sure whether I was standing on the embankment looking out over at mainland Scotland, or if I was in mainland Scotland looking over at this island. But when I think about it, the vastness of what was I was seeing in front of me was far too big to be anything other than mainland Scotland. But how you look now, if you stand somewhere looking from an island over at mainland Scotland, wherever that may be, depending on where you are, it's quite big, and there's obviously things you can tell now that's definitely mainland. Whereas way back in the time that it seems to be catapulting me back to, was back way, way, way before there was what we know now as the modern day world. It was
Yeah.
well before that time. So I'm standing there looking over, and this woman, this old woman, was to my right hand side. And it was weird because I think it was a combination of almost like the maiden combined crone aspects twisted together, as in like she was taking me as I am now and as I was when I was younger, and merging them into like how she was seeing things from a wiser point of view. And she said to me, she kind of told me to look. But then I remember looking back behind me, and there was this old cottage, like stonewashed kind of cottage, and it had really deep indented windows. And I thought, why are the windows so deep set like that? But I found out later on down the line it was because if you live in an island like that's right on the elements, right where the water is and all the elements coming in, it was to protect the property.
Yeah.
That's why the windows are so deep set. And then I remember looking behind me, and like I was self-sufficient, which is something I've always wanted to do. Like I could see I had like stuff growing, like, that I was living off the land, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing where like at that time I wasn't sure, like I say, if it was just dream or if there was a reality-based connection with it. And now I know, I feel definitely in my heart of hearts there's a connection there. I'm just not quite sure if it is a past life, definitely, or if it's like an ancient ancestor coming to me in that form to kind of show me um, how I feel that I am, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it kind of does. And, there's definitely something, divinely guided there. Like, I can definitely sense that because that's like a whole experience. Like, like, even though, like you say, it's a dream, but it sounds like it's so much more than a dream?
Yeah. Like when I seen it on the TV, I didn't know like if it was this made up world in my head, in the dream.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can have dreams and they're like your imagination kind of playing out or whatever. But this felt really real, and I thought, this feels different. And when I saw it on TV, I was like, whoa, that's out my dream. That's freaky.
Yeah.
And I remember doing research after it, and I was like, the Isle of Tyree. Okay. To my knowledge, I had no connection. I'd heard of it after the fact. I didn't know that's what it was called, though.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point actually. I find that to be a very good point when it comes to like dream work. Like, why don't we all start to like Google everything we hear in our dreams?
Yeah.
And like, and also something I've been thinking of that I've also actually seen some people do is just draw or illustrate, what you see in your dreams, like places, making maps and like those type of things. And I've kind of started this by just like illustrating what I see in my meditations. So one time I saw space chickens in my dream.
Oh, that's pretty good.
And it's so weird to like explain it, but it's like they were like these chicken beings that they just had like robes, like these purple robes. And then like their like the whole complexion, like their faces were like it was almost like stardust, like
Yeah.
very dark purpley blue um type of
Sounds very
faces.
ethereal.
Yeah, and then then like the one chicken, like I think there was like at least three of them, and then one of them just gave me this egg. The egg was like it was like this mint color, and it kind of looks like there were scales on it,
Oh, I know what you mean, yeah.
and then some, do I remember correctly, like there could have been some kind of symbol there also, but I don't remember. So I started that painting already. So that's kind of something that I've been doing. The same with, like, if I see a being, like there was one time I saw this Orion Bellatrix being. So there's this constellation of Orion, and there's a star called Bellatrix. So that's where this being came from, and it just like popped in, like right there, right there. Like the thing is, my like the half of this house is basically like a spaceship on another realm. This is again like something really weird talk. Like some people are not gonna understand this at all, but like we're gonna go with it. But anyway, so the thing is, like right behind me there's this carpet that's like I think because I've done so much magic on my floor that the carpet has become a portal. So then all the beings, they can very easily access my room, and so sometimes when I just go to bed, I'm very relaxed, and that's sometimes when my guides like to come and say hello, because I'm very easily accessible when I'm like relaxed and sleepy and going to bed and all that. So they kind of know that, and sometimes they also help me while I sleep. So they might give me an upgrade or something right before I go to bed, like right before I fall asleep, and then I'm kind of processing everything, everything while I sleep, whether I have dreams or not. Uh, it really all just happens. But one time, like I said, I saw this Bellatrix being, and it was like, it reminded me so much of this, the squid from Men in Black. I'm not sure if you remember that.
I can't remember. I've seen. I don't actually. It's a weird thing. I've never seen the movie in its full entirety. I've seen clippets of it, so I don't know if I have seen it. I can't remember, but I think I know what you mean.
Basically, it's just like a squid that has an alien face, basically. and it's like so cute. That's what it reminded me of, but it's almost like the tentacles were like this being's hair, and then like the same thing with like the purple robe. Like a lot of these beings have like purple robes, or some of them are just light, but basically I did a picture of that being, and then in my meditations I saw I went to Venus, and I saw the Venusian beings, and they were just all light. They didn't really have like any coloration on them. They're just pure light.
Yeah.
But they had some kind of shape there. So I saw the beings, and they also had that robe thing. They had robes on and that type of stuff. That's what I just see a lot. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing, and now I'm kind of thinking about taking it to the realm of dreams also.
I mean, I keep seeing it's weird because when you're saying about that, like in the dream I had, this woman, she had a staff, and there was all these intricate symbols on the staff, and they lit up and on the ground around her, to the point where one of my witch's sisters said, and I'm like, you must be joking. They're so intricate. There's not a chance in heck I could draw some of those. And over time, there's a couple of them that have came to fruition about being, oh gosh, I can't remember. I have it written down where I remember when I came across it, I was like, oh my God, what the heck? And then there's other symbols, they're really intricate. The only way I can describe it is like they're really ancient feeling symbols. And I think that part of my journey is to find out what a lot of those mean. And some of them, very few though, I have deciphered. They're really weird. Well, that's not, I can't explain it. It's like, how if you see a symbol and you've seen it before, even if you're not sure what it means, it sticks in your head. You go, oh yeah, I recognize that, even if you don't know what it means.
Yeah,
Where a lot of these symbols I was looking at, like, what the heck?
yeah, like
What
that.
does that mean?
Yeah, that sounds so much to me like, in Tolkien there's the language of Elvish and that type of stuff. And then I also I've heard like some similar things from like other people where there's just like these language things and different worlds they go to and those type of things. So like these experiences are real because like we are not the only ones experiencing this.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
I don't
Hey everybody, if you want to see the second part of this little chat, little, it's almost an hour and a half long in total, but you want to see the other part of it, go to my friend Lors's channel. It is OctoberRainRocks, and I will link it below and also in the cards. So pop in and go and see what we talk. There's so much cool stuff going on there, so go. Okay. Hey there cutie, thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. At this point I'd ask you to subscribe and click on the notification bell, as that really helps me out. It really helps out the algorithm to push these videos forward, as well as giving me a like or a comment. Also make sure you check out these two videos right here, because those may provide more learning and insight for you. So with that all being said, thank you, and I will see you in the next video. Stay aspiring. Bye!